The Spirit Kings is the fourth encounter of the Mogu'shan Vaults raid, and the first encounter of the Vault of Mysteries LFR. This fight has 4 individual targets, each with their own health pool. The targets in this encounter appear in the following order: King the Merciless, Subetal the Swift, Zian of the Endless Shadow, and Meng the Demented. The LFR health pool is 70 million HP, the enrage timer is 10 minutes, and in LFR, this fight requires only 1 tank. Each of the 4 targets attacks with a varying set of abilities, and once a target is killed, they remain in proximity to the raid in spirit form, retaining one of their attacks, which they cast throughout the remainder of the battle. Due to this mechanic, the encounter becomes increasingly difficult the closer it moves to its completion. Raid members must be aware of the environment around them, and must always be prepared to move throughout the encounter arena as the fight progresses. King the Merciless uses the following abilities. Annihilate. This is a high-damage AoE attack that is cast every 40 seconds and is easily evaded by moving away from the effect area that appears on the ground. Massive Attacks. Cast every 5 seconds. This is a high-damage attack that affects all players in the cone in front of the boss, with damage split among the impacted players. And Flanking Orders. King summons a group of 5 Mogu warriors who walk from one corner of the room to the opposite side, inflicting massive physical damage to any player they hit. Damage from these warriors is easily evaded by moving out of the path of their approach. This ability is cast every 40 seconds while King is alive, and is the ability retained upon death, which is then cast every 75 seconds. Subetal the Swift uses the following abilities. Volley, and fires 3 volleys of arrows in a cone in front of him. Starting with a wide cone and little damage, with each successive volley the cone narrows and damage increases. Rain of Arrows. Subetal focuses on a random raid member and fires a volley of arrows. This volley stuns all players in the 8-yard radius with pinning arrows. The pinning arrows deal damage every second, and these arrows can be attacked and killed, freeing the trapped players. And Pillage. This is an attack in which Subetal charges and strikes a random raid member, inflicting everyone within 8 yards with the Pillage debuff, which reduces damage output and healing by 50%, while increasing damage taken by 50%. This ability is used every 40 seconds, with the debuff persisting for 15 seconds. Once defeated, Subetal will continue to cast Pillage. Zian of the Endless Shadow uses Charge Shadows. This causes high shadow damage to one player before jumping to a random target within 8 yards, causing shadow damage to this raid member as well. Shadow Blast, cast every 45 seconds. Shadow Blast is an interruptible spell that is directed at a random raid member and causes high shadow damage to all players within 8 yards. With Undying Shadows, Zian casts this ability at the location of a random raid member, spawning an ad that focuses on a player and causes damage to all raid members within 10 yards of the affected player. Upon death, the ad becomes a void zone that shrinks in size for 30 seconds. At the end of 30 seconds, the ad respawns from the zone, focuses on the nearest player, and then repeats its previous actions. Defeated for a second time, the ad does not respawn after the second void zone shrinks. Zian retains this ability after death, casting it every 40 seconds while alive, and every 85 seconds after death. Meng the Demented has an ability resource that fills and then resets, and 2 passive abilities that alternate with each insanity reset. With Cowardice, Meng reflects damage back to the raid that is a percentage which is equal to half of his current insanity. So if he is 80% insane, 40% of the damage will be directed back. And with Crazed, Meng inflicts physical damage equal to 200% of his current insanity. His 2 active abilities are Crazy Thought. It increases his insanity by 10 and is cast around every 5 seconds. The spell is interruptible. And Maddening Shout. This shout makes all raid members hostile to one another, and causes all raid members to suffer shadow damage every 3 seconds. The effect ends when one player sustains 20,000 damage from another player. This ability is cast every 50 seconds and does not cause a loss of character control. Players can attack each other and Meng during this time. King the Merciless should be tanked in the middle of the encounter room, with raid DPS stacked on the tank. This allows the tank to move King quickly in any direction, once Flanking Orders is cast, and allows damage from massive attacks to be minimal among all raid members. Stacked players should move quickly from the front side of King to the back when he begins to cast Annihilate. Although King will also change direction to face the tank, the completion of his Annihilate cast will occur in the same direction it was started, allowing raid members to easily escape the damage area. Bloodlust, Heroism, and Time Warp can be activated at the start of the encounter to take advantage of raid member cooldowns, or it can be saved for the final fight against Meng the Demented when the encounter is the most difficult. The Pillage debuff cannot be dispelled, so affected raid members must ride out the duration. Because of this, it helps for raid members to be spread out for this phase of the battle. During volley, any players affected by Pillaged will take additional physical damage if they are hit with arrows from the volley. Pillaged players should move from the front of Subetal to the back once he begins casting this ability. And players can escape pinning arrows by attacking them, casting immunity abilities, or by using distance abilities such as Shadow Step or Blink. Though players should be spread out through most of this phase, it is important to be aware of flanking orders, which Qiang the Merciless will continue to cast. The raid should continue to remain spread out while watching for flanking orders and to prevent an overload of players affected with Pillaged. This is also useful for helping the raid deal with charged shadows, while Shadow Blast can be interrupted. Once Shadow Blast is cast, the focused raid member should kite the ad to the outer perimeter of the room, where it is safe to kill without causing the Void Zone to appear in a place where it will negatively impact the raid. Once the ad respawns, the focused players should again kite the ad to the outer perimeter of the room before attacking it. When Crazed is active, damage to the tank will substantially increase, and when Cowardice is active, damage that is done to Meng will be reflected back to the raid, so DPS should cease during this time. Because Crazy Thought increases Meng's insanity, and therefore increases the negative effects of Crazed and Cowardice, it is helpful to interrupt Crazy Thought when Meng's insanity level is low, and to let it cast when Meng's insanity is high. Doing this extends the period of the low insanity effect, while minimizing the high. During this phase of the fight, raid members must also deal with flanking orders, pillage, and undying shadows. DPS should refrain from killing the undying shadows ad until it has been kited away from the raid, and preferably in the direction of the most recent cast of flanking orders. This encounter drops level 476 loot, including the following rogue items: Braces of Violent Meditation with Hit and Critical Strike, Amulet of the Hidden Kings with Haste and Expertise, and Arrow-Breaking Wind Cloak with Haste and Expertise. Sigil of Power may also drop from this encounter. Hello everyone, this is Whitey, and in this video we are going to face the Spirit Kings. This is the first encounter of the Vault of Mysteries in LFR. One of my favorite rogue jerk things to do in a raid when we're waiting on something like this is to yell pooling and see if anybody goes with it. Sometimes they do. Alright, here we go. Okay, here comes the first Annihilate. And regardless of where he eventually puts his weapon down, that Annihilate is going to hit in the direction that he originally started the attack. Flanking orders, so we're going to see where these guys are coming from, and they're coming from that side back there. The tank is going to need to pull him out of the way, which he does, and we're going to need to get out of the way. Those guys do a lot of damage if they hit. Alright, here comes flanking orders again, and they're coming from the opposite side. You'll notice we have some dead people off to the side there, and I didn't move out of the way fast enough. Okay, killing the Merciless is dead. He always comes first. And now we are going to deal with Subetal the Swift, and this is his first volley. That's an AoE, he always shoots it in front of him in a conal shape. I went to go after that pinging arrow and ended up stepping right into the middle of pillage. Alright, here comes flanking orders again. See where they're coming from. Alright, that side. Anyway, for pinning arrow, it's probably something that's better off for someone who has a lot of AoE or can multi-dot. For a single target DPS like me, it's more productive for us to stay on the boss because that's where all our damage output is. But you can never trust LFR, so whenever there's a situation like that, always go check it out anyway, just to be sure somebody's hitting it. Okay, looks like they're on the pinning arrow, so I'm going to go ahead and stay on the boss. Here comes volley, and move away from that. Alright, Subetal is dead, so here comes Meng the Demented. Alright, we're going to take some damage from this maddening shout. And as you can see, some of the bosses we've already beaten, their attacks are persisting. Subetal the Swift is still pillaging, and we've still got these flanking orders coming in. Crazy Thought, which he casts quite often in this fight, can be interrupted with kick. So I'm trying to do that whenever my kick is off cooldown and he's casting. Okay, and here comes Zian of the Endless Shadow. We're going to try to interrupt his shadow casts as frequently as we can, but we're dependent on the reset of Kick. And we're dealing with attacks from all 4 of the bosses now, so things are going to get a little busy. And I've got AoE pools all over the ground, so we're going to want to stay away from that. And try to stay behind him. And try to avoid flanking orders, and pillage, and interrupt these shadows. And whatever that third guy does, which I can't remember off the top of my head. Let's kill this guy. And those are the Spirit Kings. Overall, this fight isn't too bad. You just have to watch for the persistent attacks from the dead bosses. There's a lot of crap on the ground and moving around that you gotta watch out for too. But if you do that, you should be able to beat this boss fight with no problems. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe.